Hi, welcome to the Crafts channel. My name's Corinne Brad, and as part of the Big Sew Quilt-Along, I have for you this lovely Bouvardia block to make today. Now it is a 9-patch block and it's made of half square triangles, so it might take me a little while just to sew all those pieces together, but it's well worth it at the end. If you're wondering why I've called it a Bouvardia, it's because there's not that many flowers in nature that only have 4 petals, and I thought I need to be botanically correct, so we've gone with this one. So we will get started. In the description below the demonstration, you'll find links to our big download pack, which includes layout designs, colour designs, and also these little cut out, colour in and rearrange on your tabletop. And there's one of these for each of the blocks that we've done. So instead of trying to plan blocks on the bed or on the floor, you can simply choose your fabrics, choose your colours, colour in the colouring sheet, cut it out and arrange it on your cutting mat. So much easier. So I've already made up a couple of the blocks. These are the petals with 2 half square triangles here, and these are the leaves. But first of all, I'm going to do the centre, and these are made from 7cm squares. Draw a diagonal line on the back of the paler colour and place them right sides together. Just pop a pin in there to stop them slipping. And then sew either side of that pencil line with a 5mm seam allowance. I can see there that I've already gone off my 5mm seam allowance line. And let's just start again up here. It's better. And in normal times, what I would do is I'd actually unpick that line to reduce the bulk. But the thread that I'm using is a Metler silk finish cotton thread, which actually lays beautifully flat. If you do need to unpick it, it does come out really easily. I have a tendency to use whatever is to hand, and then when you make a mistake, especially if you've sewn it with like a 2mm stitch, trying to unpick it takes forever. But because this has a silk finish on it, it actually slides out from the fabric really easily. There's a great range of colours, and I would say that for each reel of thread, with your average sewing machine, you can get 2 bobbins worth of thread out of it and 2 top stitches worth of thread out of it. So if you've ever played thread roulette and you've not known if you've got enough cotton left on your reel to finish a project, you'll know that whatever you wind onto your bobbin will be a quarter of that reel. And then if you end up winding a second bobbin, you can see from your top thread how much is left, which is something I never realised until I actually did it. So there's my 2 other centre half square triangles, and these need to come down to 6cm. So I'm just going to double check that. And trim off the excess. Oh. And you can check it quite easily on a gridded cutting mat, like this CLOVER one that I've got here. So if you don't have a quilter's rule like this, you can see where you need to cut. So that's my centre, and I'm going to have the paler colour in the middle. So let's just check. And we sew these together in pairs, and just very carefully check that your diagonals line up. The drawback that you do come across when making patches like this is the number of seams that you end up having in one place. I don't know where that bit of thread's come from. I'm just going to cut it off and hope that it doesn't come undone. Yeah, you will end up with a lot of seams, and you can try very hard to nest them so that you keep the amount of fabric layers down. But it's not always possible. We'll sew this together by matching up the centre. And again, just check that your diagonals line up. Give that a quick press. And this should be 11 centimetres square. That's just slightly big on that end there. So I'm just going to run across. So that's your centrepiece. And then the petals and the leaves are made again with half square triangles. Half square triangles is one of those things, you either love them or you hate them. There is an enormous amount of designs that you can make with your quilts just from triangles. If you've ever seen any of our other quilting videos, sort of over the years, I've made several quilts which are just half square triangles. But the way that you lay them out creates different shapes. And it's one of the nicest ways of getting into quilting. So I'm just going to pin all these pieces. These are the 7 centimetre squares with a diagonal line marked on the polar shade. And altogether you'll need 4 backgrounds on 4 petal colours and 4 backgrounds on 4 leaf colours. I'm going to sew either side of the line, cut them down the middle, and then we'll go from there. So I've just sewn all of them. Let's just slice each of those in half. And then we'll open them out and press them. That's my 4 other leaves. And my 4 other petals. And I'm afraid that same old, somewhat boring technique of squaring up your blocks. And you may think, you've squared up so many blocks, why on earth didn't you just cut your fabric smaller in the first place? I've done the measurements as I've done the measurements because I'm very aware of the fact that I don't use that 5mm seam allowance. So my blocks will always be a little bit bigger. And I just figure it's far easier for me to cut the excess than to give you a measurement that might be slightly too small for you, and then you're going to end up with a block that doesn't fit, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's too small. Okay. So those couple of minutes spent just trimming those blocks up might seem like a faff, but it will save you hours in the long run. So your petals, you're going to stitch two HST blocks together in a point, and I have two 6 centimetre blocks below them. And for your leaves, you're going to find the pieces of background fabric that you thought you'd lost, and you need a background, two HSTs, and then a 6 centimetre leaf colour block there. So you can check, you know, the way that you arrange things. If I'd put a back, you know, you can put backgrounds if you want to change, if you wanted to make a different kind of petal, for example, you just use another HST block like that. But that's what I mean about the half square triangles being very versatile. There are numerous ways that you can arrange them, lights and darks, HSTs and full blocks, to make different patterns. So there's a leaf patch, and then the petal patch. Just watch that top seam as you're sewing those 2 points together, because you've got 6 layers of fabric there. And if in doubt, don't go to the very end of the fabric. Allow the feed dogs to have enough material to grab onto between that and the presser foot. And that's your petal block. So I'm just going to sew the other ones, give them a press, trim them up, and then we will assemble the whole patch. Patch, block, you know what I mean. So come back to me in a second. So that is my remaining patches stitched. Just give them a good press, then I can check the size of them. While I'm giving them a good press, I know a lot of you at times have gone, oh, I love your little ironing board, which is my little ramshackle homemade padded bit of board that I've got normally. But I must admit, these CLOVER multi-boards are really quite good, because you know that you can't iron on a cutting mat. If you iron on a cutting mat, you will warp your cutting mat. But these are sufficiently insulated that you can iron on it without warping the mat. So also, this mat is really portable. You know, if you're going away, or you're a member of a quilting club or something like that, you can put your pieces inside it, fold it closed, and just pop it in a tote bag. So I've now got all my pressed pieces. So I have a petal with a leaf either side of it, my centrepiece with a petal either side of it, and my final petal with my 2 final leaves. So you know the drill by now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these together to make strips of 3, and then I'll sew the strips of 3 together. So, just a note as you're sewing them together, line up that centre seam and line up your diagonals as well for a neater finish. So there we've got my 3 strips, and then we sew the strips together, and again line up these main seams here, but also because you have these half square triangles, just take care to line up the diagonals at the same time so that you get much neater angles. So that's the two main seams lined up. And then just check your diagonals. Oh. And of course, just for neatness, that centre seam as well. So I'm just coming to the end of this final seam. And we'll give it one last press. And then what I am going to do, as usual, just give it a quick measure. And as usual, my 5mm seam allowance is slightly bigger than 5mm. So I'm going to cut this down a little bit. Just to neaten it up. And if you find that, like me, you struggle to, it appears that you struggle to get a consistent seam allowance, and so you make a series of blocks and one comes out at 30.5 centimetres and one comes out at 31 centimetres, and don't despair. There are ways and means of levelling up everything so that it fits. And it is all to do with your seam allowance. If you square up your blocks each time and check they're the right size, it will just be your final seam allowance that causes the problems. But then this is why sashing, which is the act of separating each block with a narrow strip of fabric, is so brilliant, because if you've got a block that's 30 and you've got a block that's 31, by the time you've sashed it, you can't really see from a distance that it's very slightly bigger. So that's why I sash quite a lot of my quilts, because they're not always the same size. Anyway, I hope you like that. That's my Bouvardia block. We've got another video to do for you as part of the Big Sew Quilt-Along, so I hope you'll come back and see that very, very soon. In the meantime, keep safe and thank you very much for watching. If you've been inspired to create, please share your makes with us in the comments section below. And if you've enjoyed videos by the Crafts channel, hit the like button. Want to see more of us? Then click subscribe. See you next time.